2026 has already started, and both JP plus EN servers are looking very great in terms of their contents right now. With that being said, 2026 for FGO EN is looking absolutely stacked, especially for the events that are going to be happening this year. However, with many interesting nodes and powerful servants releasing very, very soon, have you ever wondered who's going to be the most useful out of the bunch? In this video, I'm just going to do exactly that and go over the top servants that'll be used in 90++ and couple of raids in 2026. This will be measured using JP metrics uploaded to App Media, with some criterias like the number of entries, number of appearances, and average use rates between the events. Some disclaimer before we start, there are some missing event stages or raids like the Arcade Collabry Run and MiHoYo raids, but that shouldn't skew the entire dataset that much. Some input errors or my misunderstanding of stats probably makes this analysis not 100% correct, but hey. And the biggest of them all is... yeah, let's get there when we get there. With that being said, let's look at the top 3 servants for 2026 FGO. We're starting off with Avenger Khloe as our third most useful character in 2026. Hopefully we are all aware of why that is. Yes, it is because of her utility as an order change merchant, but let's go over her kit first. First skill is a party-wide attack and crit up. Pretty okay skill considering that it's basically 20% charisma with other utilities. Second skill is what makes her broken, with granting guts to one ally and self-applying prepare revision status. This status moves Khloe to the back of the party, basically acting as a plug suit to swap out any character. I shouldn't have to tell you how broken the order change skill is, allowing additional servants to clear a wave or simply buffing more using the meta supports. However, that is not a full picture of Khloe's second skill, as the guts effect is pretty useful as well. This skill allows you to use servants like Arash to make himself loot, or even mixing it with Tez to gain additional attack from his charisma. And finally, her third skill, party-wide 20% NP damage increase with some NP charge if you have manuscript completion status. NP damage up is very nice, but NP charge skill almost never comes up due to her requiring setups beforehand. Khloe's NP is single target quick NP that deals more damage if you have more manuscript completion. Some of Khloe's strength is quite obvious. It's her use as an additional order change servant, which, as I've said before, allows you to bring out the meta supports, providing high NP charge and insane damage buff to the main carry. Not only that, Khloe by herself is pretty okay buffer, as 20% increase on attack plus NP damage is quite good. And if the situation calls for it, she can dish out single target damage with some NP charge on the side. She had the highest appearance rate out of any servants. We are gonna get to who you might be thinking in a sec, but just go on. She also had solid numbers in terms of entries and average user rates, both coming in around the top 10 for both. She had her best use in MiHoYo 90++, with over 50 entries and 6.36% use rate on that event. Coming in at number 2 is Castoria Avalon, or should I say Castoria Berserker. Damn, that's mouthful. One of the favorite servants within the community for both her story and her sheer meta dominance. The first skill is her crit damage and star absorb up for 3 turns, as well as 50% battery on herself. Very useful since it is just 50% battery that has other uses for crit shenanigans. Second skill is single target 20% battery. 2 NP overcharge for 1 ally, and 20% NP regen up for an entire party. Again, very solid skill, sort of reminiscent of her caster form, but this time she has lower NP regen for a trade-off to NP overcharge effects. She obviously could use this on herself, as we'll talk about this later, or she could pass it on to other party members for an overcharge increase, allowing more self-buff or increase in power mods for a single ally. The third skill is, again, very busted, 50% arts increase, 10 stars per turn for 3 turns, and self-invincibility for 1 turn. This self-buffing skill is very strong, as it is 50% multiplier with 3 turns of uptime. 50% color buff is one of the best multipliers in the game. She obviously does more damage due to this, but it also allows a longer damage window and NP regen due to her 3 turns of duration. Star-gen goes well with her first skill, and some survivability is nice. Her NP is anti-threats to humanity, art single target NP, with additional damage mods being applied for divine and chaotic enemies. There is also solemn defense being applied, which is nice. I shouldn't have to mention how good anti-trait NPs are, especially when it comes to super common traits like chaotic or divine. Though they are damage mod applied, not full damage mod, making her damage quote-unquote not the best, but she is still very strong. Again, you shouldn't be surprised by her use as well. She is an Arash Berserker with a single target NP, with both very common power mods and very loopable NP. Not to mention her NP overcharge and other supports like usability. Overall, probably the strongest single target looper in the game, which comes in handy for that 1-1 node or even single 1 enemy node with her NP charge on the side. Castoria Berserker had very high numbers of entries, with her barely missing the top 5, had slightly lower average use rates, but still higher than Summer Khloe. Her appearance rate was similar, with appearing in 7 out of 12 events, which is quite good. Her best use in 2026 is going to be the Christmas 2024 90++, not to be confused with Phantasmoon's event. It's the first Christmas event we have for 2026, with 9.45% use rate and whopping 239 entries. The anti-trait match and her OC increases that boost her damage even more is probably the reason why she was used this much. You might be wondering where the usual suspects of most used servants are going to appear. Well, I've made them into an honorable mention squad. Yeah, with very high metrics on 3 fronts, and having 100% appearance rate is crazy. Other honorable mention goes to CL and Phantasmoon as well. Kind of ironic that these two are in the same group, but there is a reason. CL for her abusability in both 90++ and single target content, aka the raids. Phantasmoon, again with her multi-core function for 90++ and raids specifically built for her. Funny enough, considering just the numbers of entries, CL was our best servant, except for obviously the big 4, with 742 entries and 4.26% of the total appearance being hers. For Phantasmoon, making a crack on the list even though there are only 2 nodes considered for her this year is insane, but due to her entry numbers being so high, 451 entries to be exact, and making close to 17% and 15% on her events roster, which is just bonkers. Damn, I wouldn't have expected this servant to be this high, but our goat, Arash, is the #1 most useful servant in FGO 2026. I'm quite surprised that Arash got to be on top, but It makes sense considering he is a 1-star servant with huge potential on his back. I'm not gonna go over his first 2 skills as they are not related to why he is so busted. Plus and gold, this is my cue to buff Arash skill 1 and skill 2 this year. His third skill is 30% battery. Very simple yet so effective. This 30% and 20% from his append gains himself a 50% battery, and considering how that most of the events offer a 50% starting CE, it is straight up go time for Arash. His NP is so iconic. Stella deals massive AoE damage to enemies while sacrificing Arash in the process. His use cases are quite simple: AoE wave clearer that plug suits your support from the back. That's all he does, but it is very useful. He's basically like Summer Khloe, but with Arash more focused on dealing damage, while Khloe is the supportive option. Another advantage that Arash has is his rarity. Him being 1-star massively reduces the team costs, allowing you to put 5-star supports or even bonding them up in a 6 CE environment. Arash has a very high appearance rate with 8 events out of 12, beating out Castoria in this regard, but still under Summer Khloe. He has a high average use rate with him coming 6th with 2.8%, and total numbers of entries being 7th with 555. His best node this year is going to be with Summer Rerun 2021, with 11% of use cases in that event being Arash. I mean, save away with low enough HP, that's basically a freebie to Arash. With that being said, this is just one metric from the JP side. It's not like this is the only servant that you can use, but here was the top 3 within the database I've collected. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know if you have any additional comments in regards to the list.